Showcasing the wacky to the wondrous, this year's International Consumer Electronics Show, or CES, opened on Tuesday in Las Vegas. Featuring the latest and greatest developments in technology, the CES, known as the global stage for innovation, has become a mecca for tech heads, gadget gurus, and anyone involved in the booming business. Since its launch over 50 years ago, the CES has introduced favorites such as the Apple computer, Nintendo, and high-def TV. Now, more than 4,500 companies are exhibiting this week, and over 180,000 people from 150 countries are attending. But this year, a few key exhibitors are notably missing. 20% fewer Chinese exhibitors attended this year's show compared to last year. Why such a dramatic drop? I'm joined on the line from the site by Jeffrey Towson, Professor of Investment at Peking University; from Guangzhou, Matthew Brennan, co-founder of the China Channel; and from New Jersey via Skype, Scott Schober, President and CEO of Berkeley Varitronics Systems, and also an author and cyber expert. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Jeffrey, let me go to you. So 20% less of Chinese companies participating, notably 1,200 compared to last year's 1,500. Is that noticeable on the ground? Are people talking about it? Jeffrey.
It's definitely something, it's probably the big story people are thinking about, because that's not, I mean, that's 20%. That's a noticeable number. But you have to keep in mind that Chinese companies here have an overwhelming presence. There's no other country that has 1,500 companies here on the ground. And then maybe the thing that's a bit more noticeable is no keynotes. The Chinese companies have somewhat of a quieter presence than they have in recent years. So it's sort of decreased number, and nothing too, there's a little bit of a laying low phenomenon perhaps more than last year.
Yeah, so what are the reasons contributing to the relatively smaller Chinese presence, Jeffrey?
This is the sort of the speculation game everyone's doing. Obviously, it's the U.S. trade situation. Has to be, if anything, it's that. If it's not random noise, it has to be the U.S. trade and economic sort of back and forth. I think it's mostly wait and see. I think it's, let's do what we did last year, but maybe not do something splashy. Let's not dress up as Michael Jackson and be on stage as we've seen certain tech companies do in the past out of China. I think it's a little quieter this month in particular, given what's happening right now.
Okay.
But it wouldn't surprise me in 6 months next year if it's just back up in force again.
Yeah. Anyway, the smaller presence of Chinese companies, is that having an impact on the local exhibitors or the local consumers or the local brands that are competing there? Jeffrey, my last question to you.
For the smartphones, televisions, things like that, that's a consumer-facing thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't, this is more of a trade show, so it's a lot of business-to-business discussion. It's not a consumer show in that sense. People don't do that. But yeah, it's a lot of networking. It's probably not going to impact anything on the consumer side, sales like that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's noticeable and people are talking about it.
Okay. Mr. Brennan from Guangzhou, what is your take of the smaller presence of Chinese companies here in Las Vegas? Do you think that says anything about the kind of trade atmosphere between the two sides, or the wait-and-see attitude that Chinese companies are exhibiting towards their American market? Mr. Brennan. Mr. Brennan, do you hear me? Okay, let me go to my guest, Scott Schober, if you are there. Can you answer that question, Mr. Schober?
Yeah, certainly. I do think this is not surprising with the lack of attendance and lack of exhibitors. And I think my take is one of the underlying reasons is probably some of the drama, obviously, between the trade tariffs. But what's happened with Huawei? I mean, Huawei is a huge company. They provide a ton of infrastructure equipment, and I think what Trump has strongly said is to the government and to a lot of companies throughout America is don't use their equipment. Look what happened in December, end of 2018, with the arrest there of a Huawei CFO. That sent waves, I think, certainly through the wireless industry, and a lot of people suddenly say, whoa, you couple that with the slowing Chinese economy, that's a culmination of certainly a slowdown of presence, at least, at a tremendous international show such as CES for this year. So I don't think it's necessarily, again, surprising. It's probably a temporary blip in a sense, but with time, I'm sure that hopefully they'll work out some of these trade difficulties between the U.S. and China, because you've got two giant world economies here that are going to affect not just each other's countries, but really the global economy as a whole. So this is an important thing that it gets worked out and worked out fairly soon.
Yeah, last year the U.S. Commerce Secretary also announced the proposal to restrict potentially emerging technologies to China, for instance, and included, for instance, AI or biotechnology. What do you think that has impacted on the kind of shows and the participation of Chinese companies in such kind of shows? Do you think there is any impact at all?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, from my perspective, AI is the future. The U.S. has poured tons of money into AI development, and China has too. The United States still leads from a innovation and development standpoint, but China is right there immediately behind them, catching up, and probably will surpass at the rate that they're going between hiring engineers, developing this technology, partnering with other companies. Now, this puts a little bit of a difficulty into it with the tariff wars and some of the restrictions. So if these things don't ease up, it'll put more tension, and it'll actually stifle innovation, not China side, but also from the United States side, because many of these companies have a global presence. They're in the United States, they're in China, they're in many other countries. So it's very important that everybody can work together and share the information to really spread this innovation, especially in wireless, where it's exploding. We're now in the situation where we're migrating from 4G, fourth generation LTE technology to the fifth generation technology, and China has invested everything. It's an all-in game, and they really want to succeed here. So it's important that everybody works together.
Yeah, looking ahead, now that we have this tentatively optimistic outcome of the latest round of trade talks between the two sides, how are things looking for the year ahead in 2020, let's say, for the CES? Mr. Schober, very briefly.
I tend to be an optimistic person. I think these things will work out. Both sides need one another, and I think ultimately CES is probably going to try their best to attract as many Chinese companies back, because, as mentioned, over 1,500 companies are exhibiting there. That's a tremendous amount of revenue. Just the people walking the trade floor, it's estimated that 30-some% of them are coming from China. So that's the bread and butter for CES. If they lose that or it goes down in 2020, they could take a big hit. So they're going to do everything and anything to attract China and the people there and the companies.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Many thanks to our guests from Las Vegas. It was Jeffrey Towson, Professor of Investment at Peking University, from Guangzhou, although we didn't establish the line, Matthew Brennan. Still thanks to him for standing by, and from New Jersey via Skype, Scott Schober, President and CEO of Berkeley Varitronics Systems, and also an author and cyber expert. We do need better technology for TV, at least. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle The Point with LX. Download the application called CGTN to watch the show on your mobile devices, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thanks for watching. You've got The Point.